All right, welcome everybody, and thank you for making this special meeting. It is a one agenda item meeting. Nancy, you've got attendance?
I do.
Good, thank you. All right, so we are going to be presented with our design development estimate. So I'm gonna turn it over to all of our professionals. Guys from Downs, you're gonna take the lead on this?
Yeah, sure, Mark. I could start, and then Richard, of course, if you have anything to add, jump in. Scott should have something to share there. But good evening, everyone. The team has been working very hard at combing through drawings and doing takeoff and pricing and getting our finger on the pulse in the market, so we can report back to you all where we are with the status of the design development budget.
It's there.
Can you guys see everything okay?
Yep.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah.
So we're not 100% finalized. We still are working through a number of open items, which we will touch on, but we wanted to give everyone kind of a big picture update first. We have a substantial amount of information that supports the data, supports the pricing. But as part of this process, what we talked about last time was a reconciliation process between us as the construction manager, TSKP, their team, and their consultants. Because at the design development stage, a lot of the documents and the details are really coming to fruition. Now we're able to we're able to review specifications. As you saw from some of the questions that were asked last time, you know, we're looking through those specifications, we're making constructability lists, and we're coordinating between our two firms. And really, it's important for us to understand the architect's design intent and their vision, because we do understand that not everything is on the drawings yet. Not everything is 100% quantifiable, and we do understand things are going to progress, but we do want to be able to capture as much as we can in this estimate, because again, it is an estimate and we are trying to project what the bids are going to come in at. And we're not necessarily trying to be the low bidder when we put together construction management estimates. We're trying to be the second and the third bidder, because we want to have that nice average of what the market is going to tell us. So I'll go through some of the numbers, and then we'll go through some questions. We'll share some of the detail. But where we wanted to start first was just to kind of reiterate what the previous budget and what you're looking at there in the first column. Scott, if you could just kind of run your cursor there. The previous budget is what we're calling the town's, or the town of Bloomfield's original budget. And we put it into 6 different buckets of monies, 4 of which are in the soft costs, owner expenses, professional services, FF&E, computers and technology, the owner's contingency, and then of course the big number is the construction hard costs. As you know, we went for additional funding from CIF with the Prosser grant was appropriated to be used for funding, as well as some additional town council monies that was added. So we wanted to also put those monies back into the appropriate bucket that we thought that they should be to ultimately increase the budget to where it needed to be. So we had an $83,000 line item, you know, all part of the original, request. And again, this is a combination of two different requests. There, the $83,255 is really a component of the CIF funding, where we kind of rounded off some numbers, and we added that to the computers and the technology budget. As part of the CIF funding, there was $356,068 that was considered contingency. All of the remaining funds, the $6,586,677 is made up of all the remaining CIF funds. There was also a $1.5 million line item in there for escalation, the $500,000 that was appropriated by the town council, and the $1 million for the Prosser library grant. In addition, we had some line items that were kind of tacked on to the list. We had 2 EV charging stations that I think totaled about $26,000. But the total for the additional funding that we added to the project was $7,026,000. So our task was then to then prepare the design development budget. Like I said, we are in the process of still going through that. We've had a number of meetings, and it's always a process, right? We're trying to understand things. We expect and we appreciate the feedback, because plus or minus, we want to make sure that we have the most complete budget. We also want to make sure we have the most complete scope. So there's a lot of stuff going back and forth. And before I forget, I do want to add that that chip was also a big part of this process too, from Colliers. So we've had a number of meetings to kind of get to this point. We know we still have a little bit of work to do, but we think we have a solid roadmap, to report and to take us to the next steps. So we did, and not only did we look at the construction hard costs, but we also looked at the soft costs, FF&E, technology, AV, commissioning, materials testing. So we wanted to make sure that those budgets were still appropriate with what we're seeing in the market. So we have an opportunity right now to make adjustments, put things in the right categories, and ultimately still maintain what we think is appropriate for contingencies, escalation numbers, and design and estimated contingencies. So everything for the most part on that respect has stayed intact and has actually increased. And I'll go into that in a minute. But the design and estimating, the design development estimate, Scott, if you could just go to the design development column there, second to the left, yeah, that one right there. So that's kind of where we landed with an update of the budget. The $550,000 for owner expenses remained. Professional services has increased a little bit. And as things have been getting approved through this building committee process, we have been updating the professional services line items kind of behind the scenes in the appropriate spaces. So it looks like it's changed by 52,000 plus or minus, but that number is accurate to where we stand right now, and actually has some projected costs in it for things that we know are going to come up. 900,000 for FF&E has remained consistent. Computers and technology is where we actually shuffled some costs around. We did get estimates back from the technology consultant that is working for TSKP. And that, of course, was a process too, because we had to get them up to speed very quickly. And then we had to take a deeper dive into their scope and critique and make sure that their scope and their pricing was appropriate for what we should be carrying. And also make sure that anything that was on the owner's side, we didn't have duplicated in the construction side. That's always very important too. I know that some members of the library staff have been involved in that, and we've talked about making sure that we have a responsibility chart. So we've actually have kind of like the beginning parts of that. And that budget actually has increased. Those technology numbers have increased, but it's important to project what we think they're going to be come bid day and come the day that we're going to sign purchase orders. The owner's contingency, we were fortunate enough to be able to increase in large part due to the additional funding that everybody worked so hard to get approved. So thank everybody for that. So that is back up to around 5%, which is appropriate, because if you remember, there were some adjustments, some things that we had talked about during the last iteration of the schematic design process. So that's a benefit right there. And then the hard construction costs. Right now, our estimate for all of the trade costs, including construction, design, estimating, and escalation contingencies, is $30,398,569. In total is slightly above the appropriated amount, but we do have a roadmap here that we have a number of open items that we are continuing to work on to narrow that gap down, and they're in the process of being vetted. And hopefully, as part of this process, there's some other things that come up, because we really truly never stop working on the estimate. We're always getting smarter. We're always fine tuning costs. We currently have jobs that are bidding that we're gathering a little bit more historical data in this uncertain climate that is really helping us narrow some things down. So in total, when you really look back at what we estimated in schematic design, some costs have gone up, some costs have come down, and it's just kind of where we are in the market. But all in, I just want to quickly go through some of the additional items that we think are very viable in making adjustments. And Scott's circling them right there. So eliminating the detention basin at McMahon is related to storm drainage and runoff. That's something that we've been working closely with the civil engineer and also the town engineer. Nancy's been going back and forth and being a valuable conduit with in that respect to help mitigate some costs there that quite frankly make a little bit more sense for the runoff, for sustainability, and helps minimize some of the costs. So at McMahon, we're looking to eliminate a detention basin, and also at Prosser, we're looking to eliminate a small detention basin. The relocation of the dumpster at the Riley parking lot. If you remember, there was a presentation trying to find a good spot for the service road, which I should take that back. A good spot to find the dumpster, which ultimately added some scope, added a service road. Well, we're looking for a spot to relocate that, put it back over at the Riley parking lot, get it a little bit out of the way. Again, the town is willing to work with everybody on trying to find a better option for that, but there is some money that is up for discussion, I should say. There's also a delivery drop-off, like a curb cut, that presently exists at the front of Prosser. Current design documents call for that to be completely removed and basically redone, almost put back in the same spot. We actually, in doing a little bit more deep dive there, we saw some potential for some unknown costs there with relocation of existing utilities that we felt was a little bit more of a potential issue and liability down the road. So, we asked a couple questions if we can potentially leave that curb cut there and replace the sidewalk, replace the curb, make it 110% more presentable than where it is, but yet not have to do as much work in the road, shift traffic, and it seemed like we might be opening up a can of worms over there with some existing conditions. So rather than overestimate and add things that we thought were unnecessary, we're actually suggesting with the team to possibly eliminate that scope of work for $47,000. Also, I think that towards the left there, Scott, we lost a little bit on the page, but the last item is At Prosser, because you have two parcels, you have two parking lots, you actually potentially need two electrical services because the Eversource does not like when services cross lot lines, potentially for safety reasons. If they ever had to cut the power, it looks like one piece of property, it looks like one address, but in reality, with a town, it's actually two. So we're actually looking if there's a way to reduce, eliminate, or combine the property to take some savings of $61,000 there. Of course, we need the power over at the Riley lot for site lights, potentially maybe some convenience outlets, but for the most part, we need the lights over there, and we need the power over at the Riley lot. So again, we're still working on things. We wanted to make a presentation. We wanted to show everybody, have a discussion of where we're at. So we think all of the items that we just presented, that we just talked about, are viable options to reduce some cost, to keep working at it. And with all those items coming to fruition, that would bring the total project budget to $36,231,761, which would be about $49,000 under budget. And that still would be maintaining your contingencies, escalation, and things like that to get us to the next phase, which would be the construction documents phase. And Scott, if you could just kind of flash to the backup, just so everybody kind of sees what's kind of behind the scenes. We have a complete divisional summary from Division 1, which was mostly your project requirements, through the existing conditions and the demolition at both sites, concrete, masonry, right on through every single division. It's a very detailed estimate for two buildings. Everything was measured, taken off. We've utilized some recent information, so I didn't want to say it's really historic at this point, but given some of the times that we're in, the information we're getting from jobs that are being bid currently is very valuable information, and also keeping our finger on the pulse with the marketplace, with material prices and things like that. So the intent here is to provide a complete snapshot of the total project budget, including all of the soft costs and the hard costs. And in addition to what you see on the last page here, actually, Scott, go one more, because we do have a list of alternates too that are worth discussing. So we have a number of alternates that have been prepared. Looks like they're all, for the most part, on Prosser. And if you see the alternate with parentheses as a negative, that means that the scope of that work is in the hard construction costs that we just presented, and this is a deduct alternate. And these alternates would be used to help manage the budget going into the CD phase, and then if so, we decide to manage that budget going into the bid process. Each bidder would identify the costs associated with these alternates. We would describe these alternates in very much detail. But just to quickly run through them, ceiling tile, these are the clouds at the children's center. That would be a deduct alternate of $107,000. Again, that scope is currently in the number that we just talked about. Delete the ceiling in the open parking area under Prosser would be a deduct of $81,000. Delete the south balcony, deduct of almost $60,000. Delete the exterior vertical sunshades on the east elevation for $24,000. And then the next two you actually have to look at together. Might make sense in the future for us to call that 5A and 5B, because you can't take both of them, and that is for a higher level finish on the veneer of the foundation on 2 elevations of the building. Currently, the base bid, if you will, or the current scope we have budgeted is for a concrete parged exposed surface. Accepting one of these 2 alternates would provide an increase of scope for exterior brick veneer or stone veneer. So you wouldn't accept both of them, you would accept one or the other. The brick is an additional almost 101,000, and the stone veneer is an add of about $142,000. The last alternate would be the add alternate for the range and the hood in the kitchen area in Prosser. That would include the hood, the ductwork, the exhaust fan, and I think there might have been an Ansel system for fire protection included in there as well. So that's kind of a review of the alternates. In addition to the general summary, we do have a detailed estimate that shows you every component that we have estimated, which we would share as well. I guess with that, Richard, is there anything you would like to add, or Chip, anything from your side you'd like to add on things we've been working on, things I might have missed as I was kind of rattling off things there?
Sure, if I could go first, and then maybe Chip would like to chime in. So this has been a team effort. So we received the estimate last week from Downs, and we have been working every day with our consultants and with Downs to verify information, quantities, understanding of scope. What do we mean by certain kinds of ceiling finish? And all of that has been vetted out. We worked with Richter and Segan, SLR, with RZ, and also with the structural Michael Horton Associates. So everybody's been participating in this effort. So if you could scroll up to the top, I just want to make sure everyone understands. Oh, here you go, right here. So right now we have a total project budget of $36,231,761. This has anticipated some items that you see there, some open items. We think that they're smart ways to handle a few things, could save some money. I just want to clarify, Tom, those are, when you get to the 36,231, you've taken those deductions. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. We can talk about those later if you like. And then if you go to the other page.
The alternates?
Alternates page, I'm sorry. The alternates page, those are additional cushion, if you will. That's the way I think about it. So if you wanted to have some leeway on bid day, these are the way to handle it. So we don't need to necessarily have a decision on that tonight. That's a decision that could come later when we do construction documents, but it is always wise to have a bit of a cushion in the bid packages just to give you the option of adding or subtracting certain items. That's it for me. I don't know if Chip, you'd like to add anything.
Sure. I think the only 2 points I'd like to bring out and make sure is clear is that the FF&E furniture, fixtures, and equipment do want to, verify, confirm that we have restored those. Part of the discussions back at the end of schematic design was cutting down a lot of that budget for later decision and possibly having to reuse furniture, but we have restored those so that we've got the full furniture budget, and we've also increased the technology and audiovisual budget to reflect the information provided from and estimates provided from the consultants that have been working with the library staff to determine those needs. So we are fully funding those at this point. And then the other thing is on the owner's contingency that had crept down over time in order to, meet the budget at the SD phase. But with the additional funding, do want to recognize that the overall project budget has gone up, and therefore it's appropriate for additional contingency money to be added as well, so that we are protected, once we get into construction.
So yeah, Chip, that is confirmed. The FF&E budget, computer technologies, those have all been replenished from any discussions that have been had in the previous schematic design phase of budgeting, value engineering. All that stuff has been put back to where it was supposed to be, and then some, as you mentioned, in the technology.
Okay, thanks.
All right, Tom, you're all set for now?
Yeah, again, I just want to reiterate too that we welcome questions. We would expect that we would share this information, including all the detail, and expect questions at the next meeting. We'll be prepared to answer them. If anybody has any questions now, obviously too. But please, we're going to continue to work on it. It's not something that is done by any imagination, but we do welcome questions. It does spark additional brainstorming things, and you never know where one question might lead you.
And Tom, if you could send those to me so I can make sure we can get them into the hands of the building committee members, that would be great.
Will do, Nancy. You got it.
Yeah, I want to reiterate that everything we're looking at now is going to be available to everybody, including you guys have even more backup to the backup, right? I mean, it's a 20 or 30 page document for each of the projects. So that's all included. There's a ton of information here. I want to thank our team for working so diligently in the last couple of weeks. Hundreds of hours. There's so many people involved. Everybody's a specialist. So, it takes everybody getting together and coordinating all this information. So thank you all for working so hard on it and continuing to do that. So why don't we, I know this is, a lot of new information for everybody. We seem to be, I think in a pretty good position here overall. And, as we go forward, we still have the construction document phase to go through and another exercise in estimating as we do that, and eventually make some decisions on alternates, as we go forward. We don't need to be doing that yet. I think I take these all as suggestions at this point of what we might be looking at. Maybe some other things will come up as well. So the more the numbers get fine-tuned, I think the smarter we get about what we want to do and how we move forward. So I will be very happy to entertain questions. I see Bob Berman, you have your hand up?
Yeah, yes, I do. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's a comment more than a question. When I add up the over/under before we get to the additional open items, that's roughly $302,000, which is less than 1%. Which says to me that we came in a lot tighter than I thought. I mean, Mark and I had a bet going. He thought we'd be about 500,000. I thought we'd be about $1 million over, and we're only 300,000 over. And that's with all those items that we had taken out in schematic back in. Plus, and I think that bodes very well for going forward, because we're really not going to know till we go out to bid. And I suspect that when the construction estimate stuff comes in, we're going to be even tighter before you even consider these additional open items. That's my only comment. Thank you.
Scott, if you can go to page 3 in that PDF, just to kind of show, I think, what Bob was, the number he was talking about, the 302. If you keep scrolling down a little bit, just so when people are looking at it, they See, you see it there, Scott? 303, 303, 692, I think was what Bob was adding up.
No, I got lost.
Keep going down, down.
That is it.
Oh, right here.
92, right
right
there.
Yeah,
That's what he was adding up. And then the 49, 239 cross references to the summary page.
yeah.
Okay. Chris?
Yeah, I just had a quick question on the technology line. I saw, I've looked over D'Agostino's work, and Nick said in his email that it doesn't include his numbers don't include end user hardware, PCs, printers. Does this number include that?
Yes.
Okay.
Nancy, just confirm that for me. I'm 90% sure it does. I'm actually looking for the detail as we're looking now.
I don't think it does. I thought it only included that AV list that.
Oh, okay.
It's
That
more
was-
than the AV list. It's got the AV and the technology that they listed. I think he did recognize that was not included. So, I think we'll need to determine what those costs are. I don't know what those needs are right now to to understand exactly what that exposure is, but I don't think it's significant.
All right. I did provide him and Downs with the list that has all that on it. So we'll have to, there's a lot of discussions ahead. I was looking it over.
Sure.
And we need to refine things, but I was just curious, so I knew what we were working with.
So Chris, just to clarify, was that the list that had the like the rooms identified where you had like meeting room or conference room and you had a number, a list of equipment on it?
No, I actually worked up a new one that was just straight list. Kyle reached out to me from you guys, and I sent it to Kyle, and then I sent it to the D'Agostinos. So
Okay.
that just lists like how many desktop PC. It's just like the numbers, how many desktop PCs, how many receipt printers, how many printers, all that kind of stuff.
Okay.
When was that sent?
There is a line for network electronics. Would that
No.
be that? No?
No. I think D'Agostino provided that line.
Okay.
All right, well, we'll
right.
identify that and include that.
All right, Chris, we got a little homework though, but thank you for that.
Let's see, Lois and then Patrick.
Thanks. Could you just clarify the water and the electricity at Riley? What's happening there? You've taken out $61,000 because something different is going to happen with the water and electricity. What is that?
The 61,000 is for an additional electrical service at the Riley lot. So it sounds like Eversource is asking for 2 electric services, because in order to power the site lights and anything that requires power on the Riley site, you would have to bring the power across the bridge, which would cross over a property line, because right now although the town owns both, they are 2 different pieces of property. And that doesn't fall in the guidelines of Eversource. So that's one of those things where, although it hasn't been completely vetted, it hasn't been added in scope to the drawings, it's something that the designers and us have been working with to try to verify. So to eliminate that would be to either try to figure out how to combine the properties, or to understand Eversource's requirements to make sure that we're not, violating anything and we can cross over the bridge and bring the power over.
What I don't understand is that there is electrical service and water service at Riley now, or at least there has been, because they have an ongoing large enterprise there.
So my
this is
understanding is, Richard, you want to take that?
Yeah, let me just try to help clarify this. And you should understand that at design development, a lot of details still need to be worked out, and this is one of them. So my understanding is that you currently have 2 parcels, and that each parcel has a service from Eversource, the power company. There is a charge, a service charge to provide a new transformer, a new vault, and unfortunately, we won't have a building on the Riley parcel, so we can't put meters. So there's probably a vault with meters in it required. And you also need to have a transformer for the Prosser parcel, and meters would be placed on that building. So you're paying 2 charges to the electric company to service both parcels independently. And we came up with the suggestion, we talked to our electrical engineer, why do we have to have 2 charges for the electric company when in fact it's one owner? And the only way to get around that is to combine the 2 parcels into one parcel and then have one service provide the electricity on both sides.
Thank you.
That needs to be more fully clarified, but Downs has acknowledged that they were carrying 2 service charges for these parcels. So there's a savings if we can eliminate one.
Thank you.
Richard, would you take that the same explanation to the water service on the Riley property?
I'm a little unfamiliar with the water service and whether there's a service charge for that, but I think again, we would need to have a place for a meter, and that probably would require a pit. I don't think there's a line item here for going from 2 water services to 1 water service. And I personally have not had that conversation with RZ, so I can't give you any more information.
Okay, thanks. Patrick.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Good evening, everyone. Again, thank you for providing this. It's really a lot of work has gone into this. So I just had a couple of follow-ups. Just to follow up to Lois's question, though, I mean, would we need water on the Riley site? I mean, I think MDC could probably just turn that off altogether. Why would we need water at the Riley property? Because it's going to be a parking lot, right? So.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a desire expressed by Lois, on numerous occasions. I understand, and Lois, I'll give you a chance here. I understand it seems like so easy, right? I mean, there's a water line coming into the property. Why, why let it go to waste, so to speak, even though we don't have a specific use, although, there might be something in the future, but as Richard said, it will involve some way to meter and terminate that pipe coming in. So there'd be some sort of underground structure probably necessary to do that. So there's that cost involved with that. But I don't know, Lois, you want to expand on your thoughts?
Well, 2 things. One was taking care of any landscaping that's going to be put there. I guess it can be done with a water truck, but I don't understand the details of how you get the service, and I know that it can be expensive, but it just seemed to me that if it was already there, it was a shame to get rid of it. I also can imagine that there might be events where you might want to have water, and I couldn't see the practicality of running a hose over from across the brook. It was really as simple as that.
I think it sounds to me like that would make a good add alternate, identify what it really takes to do it, and then we can make a good decision on whether it's worth expending that money for that.
I'll bring the question back to our engineers, and maybe they can help flesh out what would be required to provide water service to the Riley parcel. I'll find out.
Okay. So the couple things I had, and I think I heard this, I just want to confirm that the cost to tear down, demolish the Proster, that was included, right? I thought I heard you say it was.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, and then the swing space, the cost for the rental and all the work that will need to be done, is that included in here?
That is part of the soft costs. I believe that is,
Okay.
yeah, I believe that is included in the owner expenses line. Chip has been working on that. If I'm
Okay.
incorrect, Chip, please.
Yep. No, that's correct.
Okay. And then could we just go to that alternates page one more time? I'm still a
Yeah.
little bit confused on the alternates. So are we saying that the items that are not in parentheses are not included right now in the total cost, or the ones in parentheses have been removed and the ones that are not in parentheses have been added in? I'm sorry, which could
Yeah,
we?
no problem. I know it's confusing. What
Thank
your first statement was correct.
Okay,
If it's in parentheses, it's included in the scope and it's a deduct alternate.
right, okay,
If it's not, you see it's an add alternate.
okay. So
So
right
really you
now,
have, yeah, you really have two add alternates, right? It would be enhancing the exterior concrete with a veneer, right? With the
Mhm.
stone or brick veneer, and then the hood and everything that goes along with the kitchen hood for the range.
Okay. Okay, so that's only about, we're looking at maybe 200 and say 50,000, maybe a little more.
Yeah, I mean, if you took the most expensive veneer alternate at 142 and 35, you're looking at about what 170, 177.
Okay,
Yeah, you wouldn't take P5 and P6 together. It's either one or the other.
one or the other. Oh, okay,
Right.
okay, I understand now. So it's either brick veneer or stone veneer.
Yeah, and right now you have a concrete, an exposed, parged, a finished,
Mhm.
a finished.
Yeah, I
looking
remember
product.
talking about that at one of the meetings.
Right.
Okay. Okay, then my last question for right now is regarding the contingency, the owner contingency, and that comes out to a little more than 5% of the total 36.5 mil. I was just wondering, for a project of this size and all of the work that we're doing, is that the standard contingency, or would it be more closer to 10%? I mean, I just wanted to, get your thoughts on, yeah. Okay.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to confirm that. I think we were around 5 or 6% when the project went to referendum in the original budget.
Okay.
So we wouldn't 6.8. Yeah, thanks, Scott. So we wouldn't want it to drop, below 5 before we started construction, ideally. Keep in mind there is a construction manager's contingency too right now of 3% that we're including as well.
Okay.
So together you have 8%.
Right.
Scott, if you want to flash to page
Okay.
3, and there's ways to use and scroll down a little bit more. So the construction contingencies right there.
Yeah. Okay.
Contractually, that would be under our umbrella as the construction manager to use for what would be considered in scope items. And we can go into detail on what that is at another time, but you have a construction contingency and an owner's contingency.
Okay. Yeah, thank you for explaining that. Yeah, we had that on the other project as well, 330 Park DPW. So
right.
Thank you for pointing that out. Okay, yeah, because the contingent I calculated to be slightly over 5%, under 6, but over 5. So okay, but with the two together, you're going to have closer to 8. Thank you. That's really all I had for right now. I appreciate you reviewing that with me. Thank you.
All right, thanks.
No
Thanks,
problem.
More hands, comments, questions? I don't see any.
Elizabeth's hands
Oh,
up.
Elizabeth, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. I had two questions. One about, I want to make sure I understood the topic of where the dumpster is going to be. Is that conversation going to be happening? And then my second question was about the request for the residential stove. So I'm curious about both of those things.
Nancy, you want to address the dumpster? I know you were approached by.
Yes, I've been in contact with Public Works. They've agreed to take another look at it. So they are currently in the process of reviewing that as we speak.
And then let's see, maybe I'll go.
The
to-
residential stove request.
Yeah, I'll go to Richard on the, you know, what's planned there.
So we have
Cafe.
a residential stove, but the issue here is that you also need a hood, and it's a commercial grade hood, stainless steel that needs to go directly to the roof. And you heard the word Ansel system. That's a fire suppression system that has to be built into the hood as well. And when you have and this is a commercial grade hood, when you have a commercial grade hood, you also need to bring in makeup air. So unlike a residential hood, you have to actually draw in air from the outside, bring it into the kitchen area, and then it's exhausted up through the hood. Otherwise, you get like a negative pressure, and that's the difference between a residential and a commercial hood. So it's not a simple system, and there is a fair amount of money, as you can see, $35,187, according to Downs's estimate. And right now that's listed as an add alternate. So correct me if I'm wrong, Tom. Right now that's not in the base number.
That's correct.
So this is a choice that the committee could make. If this continues to be an add alternate, that's a choice that would have to be made by the committee. On bid day, you would get an actual price for this. Remember, this is Downs's estimate at the moment. On bid day, you could get a price from bidders, so you actually know what the value of it is. But you should understand that currently the base number does not have the range and hood.
Yeah, and for the most part, I think, Richard, it's designed on the drawings. We didn't, we didn't have to interpret anything. It's shown.
Right. So I think it's a solid estimate. And the committee will need to, I think, continue to deliberate over this item, whether or not you want to continue as an add alternate or fund it through contingency now and make it part of the base bid. I don't want to confuse people. I think for now, remember, we're not in CDs, but for now, I think continuing to discuss it and continue to list it as an add alternate would be the right thing to do. I believe that some members of the committee wanted to know what its value is. And so Downs prepared a cost for that.
Elizabeth, you good? You still have your hand up.
Yes, and my last question was about the McMahon-Wittenberry Library Construction Grant. Is that in here, or that would be added after the fact?
No, it is not in here because basically if we did receive the grant, it would take action by town council to transform it from something that lowers the amount we borrow into additional funding. So, we haven't taken that leap to say that the town council would do that. So it is not included in here at this point.
Thank you, but I guess it is good to know that we do hopefully have that $1 million coming down the road as well.
Correct.
Yeah.
But again, we don't know its status if we get it, whether it's additional money or not. So that is yet to be determined. Lois?
I just have one more question about the range in the hood. If it's a residential range, why does it require commercial hood?
Because the building official and the fire marshal said so.
Oh, that's good reason. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, my understanding is a range is a range is a range. A cooktop is a cooktop, whether it's residential or commercial. You know, it still requires the add-on, you know, exhaust and fire suppression, and all that good stuff. Okay, Chris?
Just one last thing on the range, because now so we've already had the fire marshal weigh in, which I didn't know. What if it was electric? Would it make a difference? Okay.
I was shaking my head. I should be speaking up. No, that would not make a difference. It all
All
has,
right, I was just,
it all has to do with potential grease in the exhaust.
All right, well, we've seen a lot here tonight. I don't see any other hands up. Last call, lots of information here. All right, well, thank you, team, again for all of that. We will be meeting next week. So please, everybody, take advantage of the posted information. You know, I don't expect everybody to understand everything in there. I rely a lot on our professionals to do what they're supposed to do. And they are even cross-checking each other in this effort. A lot of comments back and forth from both sides, design and construction. So that's been going on and will continue to go on. So we do have a meeting next week to do that. That's the 16th, followed by our, let's see, post-Thanksgiving meeting on the 30th. So let's go into comments from the committee, and I see Bob Berman has his hand up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to point out to everybody that when you're looking at the stuff, after we get all this stuff, you might want to cross-index it with the design documents and all the appendices that are with them. For instance, if you're talking about the technology, if you go to appendix 3, the last one, appendix number 3, the tail end of it is TSKP's computer consultants, their information's there. So you might want to, when you're looking at stuff, you might want to also look at that. But when you're looking at all the numbers in this stuff, if you want to get an idea of what some of the pieces really mean, go to the design documents there, because I think Lois went through them in detail and came up with questions. I've gone through them in detail and waiting for the numbers so I have an idea of what I'm looking at. But all that stuff is out there.
Thanks, Bob. Anyone else? Comments, open comments? All right. Oh, I'm sorry, Elizabeth, I see your hand just went up.
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you for all of this work and for getting us here. And it's quite the relief to see that we're so close to where we need to be. So we look forward to going through everything and talking further.
Thank you.
Thanks, Elizabeth.
All right, public comment. Nancy, do we have any hands up in the public?
We have some people in attendance. If anybody in the public wants to speak, could you raise your virtual hand? No one's volunteering to speak.
Okay. Well, thank you, members of the public, for joining us. With that, I'll take a motion to adjourn. Moved by Lois.
Second.
Seconded by Bob Berman. All in favor, raise your hands. Motion passes. All right. Thank you, everybody. We all have our homework.
Thank you.